Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Agency Side podcast. I'm here today with Michael Carr, who runs a really outstanding post-production house called Carrma Creative. And I'm really excited to have him here and discuss his journey and other things that he's doing in his life. Thanks for being here, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're called like the Agency Side podcast, but we all know the agencies really depend and studios depend on people who are experts in the post finishing world. So I'm excited to have you here. It's definitely an underappreciated part of the entire project. And I guess I'd like to just jump right in and ask you how you got into this whole business here.
Sure. Yeah, and I don't know if it's underappreciated as much as I feel like it's misunderstood a little bit, and not by everybody, obviously, but I do definitely feel like it's the more misunderstood part of the the process. But yeah, you know what? It's funny. I actually got in to trailers kind of through agencies as well. So it's agency side actually applies to me very much so. So I was an editor for years. In sports, I did a lot of sports editing for Fox Sports, and I would actually edit both in the studio on the Fox lot and out, on the road. Basically 2016, had a kind of moment where I was like, man, I like cutting sports, but I just get bored really easily, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm like a little ADHD, and I was like, let me get into trailers, and very quickly realized it's not as easy. It's easier said than done just to jump right in and be like, I'm a trailer editor now,
Yeah.
So I kind of used some of my connections I had through, just my career, and kind of was like, hey, get me in, And so a friend of mine named Matt Gaston actually got me. He's at Ignition right now. He got me in a trailer park, and I only edited there for like 2 weeks because that's all they booked me for. And I worked on Daredevil season 2 and cut like a trailer, actually 2 trailers in like 2 weeks. I was just like flying, and left there and then put that on my reel. And then another client or a friend of mine got me on the Academy Awards that year, and I cut like a Revenant Best Picture spot and put that on my reel. And then, talked to another recruiter named Brad Bird. I'm sure you know Brad.
Yep.
And was like, hey, Brad, was kind of working Brad, constantly calling him like, hey, get me in with, And eventually he was like, hey, there's this agency called Toybox, and Toybox is no longer around, but, Barry Sampson and Roland Mesa ran Toybox, and they were like, why don't you go, I've got an interview with you. And I off of that stuff on my reel, went over to Toybox and then was on Trolls for like four months. And so, yeah, that was kind of like, okay, I'm in now, It was good. It wasn't as, it was hard to break in because I was impatient. I'm very impatient, but I don't know. It wasn't as hard as maybe it should have been. I was lucky, I guess. Yeah.
But that's cool that essentially like a 2-month booking got you a couple of finishes, which got your reel spark, which got you to the next opportunity, which got you,
I think for like
kept
people,
things moving.
Yeah, for people starting out, I think it's all about like, okay, looking at your network and going, okay, who do I know that is now in a position to maybe help me, and how can I help them? How can I help them? How can we help each other? And just utilizing your network, in that way. And then, so obviously like tools like LinkedIn and stuff are very powerful to like go and like, where's so-and-so? Oh, look at so-and-so's over here for 6 months. I didn't even realize they were over at this agency now or whatever, So it takes some detective work, and then obviously approaching it with a willingness to, everybody knows that guy that calls you only when they need something or so it's good to try to be the person that's helping them, and then usually those things come back to you, so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so after the editing, you were, it seems like, how did the journey get there?
Yeah, totally. I know. I still think it's so basically, when I was at Toybox, I saw that they were actually doing finishing there. And I was like, why the hell are they doing finishing? Because I kind of buried the lead here, but all throughout my career, I had done both. I had done both creative and finishing. So like, even when I was editing a trailer park, I had like an office in Burbank with a full like post facility, and we were mixing like for NFL kickoff. So I was still doing finishing as well, like audio mixing and stuff like that. I was, again, ADHD. I just do a lot of different stuff. So, for years I would hire mixers and I would produce them, but then I would cut myself. I wouldn't mix myself. So anyway, that's kind of why I was like still in creative. I was doing both at the time. And anyway, being at Toy Boxes, seeing them doing finishing, I'm like, why the hell? So I found out that all these agencies like are occasionally tasked with finishing. Now, they are told a lot of times to like send it out of house, right? So they're like, okay, this campaign is for Sony. Sony's going to do the finishing on it, or Netflix is going to do the finish on this, whatever. But there's a lot of times that, Netflix or HBO or whoever will just task the agency with doing it because for a variety of reasons. Either they don't have the bandwidth internally at the time, or they have a relationship with the agency and the agency's like, hey, let us do it. But, usually it comes down to bandwidth. Usually it just comes down to scheduling and like who can take this on or whatever. And so I was like, I think there are agencies that need help with this. And so that's kind of how I started Carrma. And my first client was actually Andre Bulaka, who does all the trailers for Grindstone through his company Clever Caboose. And I called Andre up and I was like, hey, Andre, remember when I was like cutting all the trailers with Brian Fink for Grindstone? Well, I was doing the finishing on them too. And I know you always really liked how we did the finishes because we would like get their deliverables correct. And it wouldn't be a whole lot of like back and forth like mistakes and stuff. Yeah. And I said, any way I could, help you out. And so Andre put me in touch with Lindsay Norman, who is she's no longer there, but she was at Geronimo at the time. And Geronimo was like my first real agency, And so I did, at the time, Geronimo was doing all these, they were tasked with doing those trailer finishes for Grindstone Lionsgate, and they would send them to me. And so I got this great working relationship with Lindsay, and they were kind of like my first thing. And then they got me on Midway, and I did this campaign for Midway through Lionsgate through them. And so it was like, okay, this is proving to be correct. Like there's like a niche here where you could kind of, and so at this point, we've kind of carved out a little niche of sort of being the agency spot, where there's still a lot I would like to work with, but right now we work with a lot with XAV, with Bond, with like I said, Geronimo, with Eclipse. Used to work with Ammo when Ammo was around. Yep. And so I, just in the last few years, I've seen a lot of movement, as I'm sure you'll attest to, of where people, Ammo close and people leave Ammo. And so Rebel, we work with Rebel, Benny and Max over there. So, and there's a few others too that I usually have a list and I forget, but probably like 9 or 10 different agencies. And then sometimes we work with like a commercial agency in Florida, and like we'll work with NASCAR and still do some work with Fox Sports. Like we still do some sports stuff too. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, we're a finishing facility doing the creative aspect of that, which I term the creative services, audio mixing, sound design, color grading, and then we'll do file deliverables and stuff in DCPs, but we don't get too heavy into localization and like the more techie part because I get bored with it.
Totally. Yeah, that's kind of like a lot of companies like Picture Production Company and a lot of those shops kind of seem like they do a lot of that side of the coin. But you answered my question. I was just going to ask you because I think there are people that might be listening that might not know exactly what finishing is. Like, what does that whole thing look like? And I
think that's a great question. So I get asked that question all the time from like relatives, friends, like, what do you do? And I explain it, and they usually have to explain it again. So I'll try to explain it. Like, here's how I explain it in, very simple terms to like people that aren't even in the industry. I'll say, okay, the places that edit the movie trailers, and I'm like, there's places that edit the movie trailers. So they're like, okay, cool. I'm like, we're the place that they send those movie trailers to put the finishing gloss on it, which includes making it look really good and sound really good. That's, and then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of get it now. And then I said, we're kind of, the last stop before it's trafficked, right? Before it goes to trafficking, localization, it gets essentially distributed to all the different advertising avenues that it goes through, right? So, it could go over to HBO, or I guess I'm still saying HBO, but I guess it's Max now. I guess it's just Max. It could go over to Max, and then they have to route it. They have to localize in different languages and send it to wherever, and then they have to put different end cards on it and all that kind of stuff. And we do some of that work too. We'll do a lot of like deliverables, different end cards and VO tags and things like that. Of course, we do that stuff. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell.
And I guess you must have a lot of background in like sound as well, like audio mixing and mastering. And what does that look like?
I've always done both. Like from the time I was 13, like I learned Pro Tools when I was like 13, and just because I was like in a band and we wanted to record. So that's kind of how things started. Like I had a little home studio with like a Digi 001. And the start. Yeah, I'm glad that you
I remember that guy. That little tiny.
Yeah. Yeah, a little 001 and a Mackie board, and I thought I was like the shit, you know. And yeah, that's how it started. And in high school, I made some short films and stuff. And I think, you know, I went to film school and for all intents and purposes wanted to be a producer director. But, you know, what you want to do and what you should be doing are sometimes not aligned. And I think your 20s is essentially discovering that, you
Yeah,
know, like what you're really good at. And I've always been good at the post-production aspect. To me, it's just second nature. It's just so, I mean, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying, like, if I
totally.
tried to sit down and like write a script, a screenplay, I would suffer.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I would really have to dig deep. It's just not like my first thing. But if I sit down on a computer and start throwing clips together, it's so easy. It's just
Yeah.
second
I mean,
nature. Yeah.
I can so relate to that. I mean, especially because like, you know, I got these guitars behind me. Obviously, you know, I'm a music guy and had really pursued that dream for a long time. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like my natural affinity has always been like of connecting people, bringing people together. When I was a kid in high school, I had this like really, I was kind of an odd fellow because I was like friends with
An
like
odd
the
fellow.
jocks, and I was also friends like the nerdy, like the theater geeks, like the super smart kids. I
You're
was
like
like
a
sort of this
social
like
butterfly.
I was like this middle person that could like if you saw what like my grooms, my best men look like in my wedding, it's just like it's like the weirdest group of people that like we went to a party. We're like, how are any of these people getting along? But somehow
Yeah.
I'm able to glue these
It was
people
the
together.
Breakfast Club. It was the
It
scene in
was
the Breakfast Club was your.
totally, and it's bizarre because I'm talking about like on every level, like diversity, political views. Like I really had this ability to bring people together in a room. Maybe I should be running for politics. I guess, you know, I guess that's just kind of going through that thing of like what if I had to be assigned to write a song for something, I don't know if I could handle that, and it might be too much pressure, kind of kill the fun out of it. You know what I mean? And I think like just like you with what you're describing your job in post production, it's like it's just very natural for me to be like, hey, this guy, I sounds like he'd get along with this guy. I should put these two guys in the room together. Maybe they'll do
Yeah.
something cool. I think there's just and we do find that out. I mean, I'm sure we're probably somewhere in the same vintage. I can tell by looking at the grays in our chin. You know, we get to this age and we kind of realize that it's like, yeah, like I really want to be a rock star, but like it's not likely that that's going to happen in my life right now. I mean, maybe there's still part of me that holds on to this like hope of these like other little big dreams. Like being a Major League Baseball player, that one's really out at this point. But I
Yeah.
still sometimes manifest these things in my head of like maybe one thing will lead to another, and then
I
I'll be
know
there.
exactly what you mean. I went to a festival two Octobers ago. So like a year and, 3 months ago. And after that was convinced I needed to start a band again. Even though I've been there, done that in high school and then kind of moved on because I had done that. But, hit up all my buddies like, we're going to start a band, man. Like even Brian Wynn, like from Ghost, now he's at Verdant, Brian Wynn. He was going to play drums, right? We had like a whole
That
thing. Like, and very quickly, like Brian and I realized like we have no friggin' time. Like we
yeah,
have no time. It really came down to Brian and I's schedule, like screwing up the whole thing. And also my buddy AJ, who was going to play bass, like he's a pilot with United. Like he doesn't have, it's like an most unpredictable schedule. So like I am in a band, but we play like literally once a year. And
yeah,
I've been in that band for like 13 years. And that's a perfect amount of, music in my life that I can
yeah.
have time for because there's no time,
Yep.
So leading up to that one gig we do like every year at Sonny McLean's in Santa Monica, we're like practice twice, because we've been playing together for so long now.
Yeah.
And then we go do the gig and then, okay, I'll see you in a year.
That's awesome.
And that like works for me. It's like a good balance.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's good that you've got that same nucleus of people that have played together for a while, so you can kind of just plug and play, no pun intended. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, I tried something similar when I relocated back to Vermont, and I tried to get a bunch of try to put a band together, and I just sort of realized that like I was doing it, but I was not doing it at a high enough level that I felt that I should be doing it. I kind of felt like
Yeah.
that like the quarterback who's just keeps getting sacked all the time. And it's just like, man, I'm in my fees and it's my, like Aaron Rodgers. It's like, I'm done. I should be, packing my bags and walking out. And I kind of
Yeah.
feel like, but it's all comes down to time, because it's like, I guess, yeah, if we were able to practice more, I think I'd be capable of not humiliating myself. But I think in the end, I might have been humiliating myself a
Well, I
little
think
bit.
I think life is, you have to make money, right? Obviously, you have to make money, and you have to, obviously, most people want a decent lifestyle, of course. But at the same time, you do, especially being in a creative industry, being a creative person, you do have to have time and make time for those projects, like those side
Yeah.
projects that are going to fuel your creativity, And I think that as much as it's fun, especially working on really big movies, like a lot of the people in the agencies that you're working with do, it's still someone else's project, and you are still
Hmm.
servicing them, right? You're
Yep.
you're servicing what the studio wants, and you can offer your opinions and your ideas, and they can definitely profit off of those ideas. But at the end of the day, it's their film.
Yep.
That took me a long time to learn in my career. Like I took ownership over everything and wanted it to be amazing. And then, you get crushed when then, people don't agree with your vision or something. And I really had to finally learn, like, okay, it is their thing. And if they don't want it this way, it's not up to me at all. Right. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. So I think it's great to have an outlet for yourself of some kind that you can own it and be like, this is mine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And in the business, in the recruitment world where I'm at, I sort of like, I take my pride in being like, okay, yeah, when it comes to me, I am even way further past like the creative parts that like you or the agency or the studio or the writers, any of those people have way, way, way more to do with all of it than me.
Yeah.
But the little bit I try to have pride in is like when I see, um, an asset that was created because I put that person with that
Yeah.
company that created that asset, which marketed that movie. So I was a piece of the whole puzzle that gives me some satisfaction.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like maybe that trailer it would have existed, but it wouldn't have looked just like that had I not put that person there, and nor would
Yeah.
it have sounded the way or the color have the crisp and had you not touched it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And I mean,
there's
it also
yeah,
sounds like, your background, like you're talking about the different types of friends you had in high school. It sounds like you are a total extrovert. And so being a recruiter is basically a perfect gig for you, right? Like
totally.
you're just talking to people all day. And I mean, I know we've talked on the phone a couple times, and I can tell you're like, okay, I mean, you're not rushing, but I can tell you're like, this is one of 50 calls you're going to make, because
Yeah,
you're hustling. That's a recruiter, right? Hustling. Like
yeah.
me personally, I recently found like a new term from an article I read called ambivert, which is like where you have characteristics of both like extroverts and introverts.
Yeah.
And that's me in a nutshell. So there's times when I'm, can go to a party and talk to people, whatever, and then I can go to lunch and talk. But then I need to like have those moments to myself of just like quiet and just self reflection time. And usually that can take form in like creating a podcast or doing something creative where, like I said, I can own it and, whatever. So
Totally.
yeah, I feel like, learning your personality type, is so like, I tried to fight it for years, try to be something you're not just because you're like, that's cool. And you're like, at the end of the day, you're like, that's not me, just,
Yeah.
yeah.
And while you mentioned your podcast, I'd love, because I have been tuning in,
Oh, thanks,
and
man.
your
Yeah.
podcast is funnier than mine. I wish I wish I was funny. That is one thing I'm not too funny. I mean,
Well, the
sometimes I
truth
can
is,
be on accident, but I'd love to
so
hear about it.
yeah, I would love to tell you about it. Yeah. So myself and Brian Fink have a podcast called The Green Band. And so I can't take too much credit for the funny in it because I feel like that's mostly Fink. And that's kind of how we set things up. I kind of let him be the funny one and then kind of try to be the straight man a little bit, and I feel it's funny because we say it's a comedy podcast about movie trailers, and it is. But then we're like setting ourselves up. There's like an expectation that it's funny.
Yeah.
So when it first came out, so what the story behind it is, Brian and I had a company. We had a very small agency called Red 57. I had met Brian at Toy Box, funny enough. Then he and I went off after my time at Toy Box was done. We went off and started cutting his trailers that he was producing at the time for Lionsgate. And we had this idea to like, let's do a podcast. So we started it in 2017 and we did like 14 episodes. The last episode was January 2018. And it's hilarious because like, we're like, all right, this was a great podcast. We'll see you guys next week. And then crickets, like nothing. Because we right afterwards just started, like 2018 was the craziest year of my career. It was absolutely bananas. We were on these first kind of got moved up to the bigger campaigns, and it was just so nuts that we just didn't have time to do it anymore. And so, recently I went through a lot of, personal stuff this year and was just looking for, I needed, again, like I was talking earlier, I needed like a creative outlet, and I was like, man, I love doing the podcast. Like, why aren't we doing that anymore? And I hit Brian up. I'm like, bro, let's just do it, man. Like, let's figure it out. And luckily I will say that, podcasting has come a long way from where it was in 2018, where you do have tools like what we're on right now, Riverside. And you have, so you can do it a little, like we would do those episodes. And the reason they were such heavy lift is because I was determined to cut the shit out of them. Right. So I would cut them really, really tight and remove stuff I didn't think was funny. And then like, honestly, I was like, this time, let's just go, man. Let's just talk. And I think that has become more the norm. You've got Joe Rogan that goes for like 3 hours,
Yeah.
The show's like an hour and a half. Like people don't seem to mind the length. So, we try to keep them to an hour but that's natural. That's just us going and then structuring the show in a way that it should take about an hour when we record. And that has been more sustainable. I've also like hired a company that's helping us with them, so I don't have to do as much myself. And what's cool is there's a video function now. So before the show was audio only, we realized this is a show about movie trailers. Like we should show what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah.
Of course, we immediately, this time around, we set up a whole podcast studio with multiple cameras, switcher, the whole 9 yards, and essentially record the show with 3 or 4 cameras, microphones, and then it, cut it. And it does go, because we're at Carrma, we do obviously mix the show, make it sound really, really good, and color grade it, stuff like that. But, it's a heavy lift, but like I said, now that I'm getting this company involved that's helping me out, that should make it more sustainable.
Yeah.
The goal is to just keep doing this and let the show grow. And we really want to, I believe that the show could be, a mainstream show because so many people watch and love movie trailers. And we're not trying to be what your show is and what Corey Nathan's show is, where you guys are diving really deep into like more of the process and the personalities.
Yeah.
We're being a little more surface level and funny with it. And so that hopefully will appeal to a more mass audience. And that's kind of what we want to do with the show. So
yeah, that's super cool. And it does look really good and crisp. And I love that you even your assets have like B-roll, like the movies and stuff that you're talking about in them. So yeah, I was impressed by that. And it's cool that you've got somebody that's helping with that. I mean,
I had to. The first like 3 I cut myself, and I'm just like, I do not have time to do this. Like, what am I doing? I'm just like up till midnight every night, like, oh God, the show's gonna drop tomorrow. I'm like, I don't have time for this. I run a whole company. Like, what am I doing?
Yep. Yeah. It's when you can delegate some of that stuff, it feels good. I have somebody, on my team, Leah, who handles a lot of this particular task. She does a great job. Obviously, she doesn't run a post-production facility like yours with all this great stuff, but she helps put it all together. And,
nice.
Thanks to like the magic master or magic clips and all those different things that Riverside has with the AI features, it becomes, you can sort of do it at this level as well, and get things out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I even thought we could do the show again, is because there is these AI tools, and I feel like I was like, I would love to talk about AI with you because I'd like to hear kind of your take, but
love it.
I had someone kind of maybe, I wouldn't say criticize, but kind of give me a heads up that like, oh, you might be using too much AI in your show. And I kind of disagreed a little bit because I felt like nothing we were doing was getting rid of a job, right?
Yeah.
And first off, the show's not monetized, right? It's all out of pocket from Brian and I right now. So that's not, there's no way we can afford to like have a voiceover person and pay them. So, we're using like an AI voiceover guy, and we just wouldn't have a voice, or it would be Brian or I. It's like not like something that we would have someone with this an opportunity,
Yeah.
We found that, we had like in the past, we had Ray Robertson did the voice for us, and he was amazing, but Ray's kind of since retired, I believe. So he's not really available, but also it was just always inconveniencing people for like, we want to add a new segment. Like, hey, Ray, can you read this? And it's like you have to add, and so it's almost inconveniencing because the show changes and like we're always gonna be adding segments. So it's easier just to like have an AI voice. And then,
Yeah.
with the logo, that's all AI created. The interstitials are AI created. Even the cameras, when I first did it, I was doing multi-camera cuts with a program called Autopod, which will literally sit there and cut the cameras based on who's talking. So these tools are like incredible. And again, it's not down to like, is it replacing an editor or something? I was editing it and I didn't have money for an editor, so it didn't really matter. But I think that it enables, like, I think that people like that are sort of union editors or like producers that are like, oh, they're worried about things like that type of automation and AI taking over things. But the way I look at it is it's enabling a whole group of creators, like content creators, to be able to do more with less.
Totally.
And again, for things that are not monetized, it wouldn't have happened. It just would have been a lesser quality product is all it would have been. And I mean, isn't that a kind of what technology does anyways? As technology progresses, we just get higher and higher quality, for something we wouldn't have had before. Like we had mini DV, look like shit. Then you have HD, right? Oh, great. Now we have HD. You're still shooting shots, but they're just higher quality,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine that if your podcast were to take off and you were to make millions and millions of dollars from it,
I would keep it all for myself. Fuck everybody. No.
but you would probably,
No.
you would probably hire those. You might bring somebody who's a real person or not be using it. Gives us a leg up.
100%. I think, no, of course. Yeah, that's definitely the goal. And I think that it's all down to comfort, really. I mean, it's not even like saying, if my podcast took off, I would share the wealth. No. It's people just wanting to be comfortable, right? They're like, once you get a certain level, you don't want to do certain things anymore. Just like editors don't want to like prep their stuff. They are not assistant editors anymore,
Yeah.
Just things like that. So it's not even, but 100%. I think that's definitely where we'd like to see things go, where the show can be monetized. And so it can be sustainable. And then Brian and I just get to produce it. Cause just the producing aspect of it is heavy. Like I would say it's like a good 6 hours a week of time just to prep the show and record it.
Yeah.
So that's not going away because we'll always be producing it, and we want to do more with it. We want to do skits. We want to actually do it more like almost a daily show type thing where there's some skits in there,
Nice.
Have more guests on, like really make it a fun thing and make it an outlet for, I mean, again, I want it to be mainstream, but I also think it could be a fun outlet for our industry just to like take a step back and like make fun of ourselves and like have a good time.
Yeah.
Because our industry does get kind of wrapped up into the Hollywood bullshit aspect of things. And sometimes I think it's healthy to just have fun and like take a step back and just goof off a little,
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm pretty, we use AI a lot here. It's almost a painful amount of AI. And in the recruiting business, it is so paramount. And the companies that are not using it, that are still just cold calling people and have, not using a really sophisticated ATS and are putting things in Google Docs, like there is a generation of recruiters that are, the reason why there's so many leaving the industry is because they are not getting with the times. I'll give you a couple of examples with how AI is.
Please do.
Yeah. So for example, all of our screening is done through AI phone conversations where our conversation is recorded by a software called MetaView, which basically is like it transcribes everything, but it's designed solely for recruitment. So it tailors everything perfectly. It will give you all the bullet points of the conversation you want to choose. You can do TLDR, which somebody reminded me what that acronym actually stands for. I don't know. So I can't remember offhand, but it's something to do with I don't have the time to read it.
I'm right there with you. People ask me shit. I'm like, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
But it's too long to read is what basically TLDR does. And you can click that button and you can make everything basically the pitch of the candidate a lot shorter. Then you can take that pitch, you can put it into ChatGPT and say, humanize this pitch of this candidate. Then the ChatGPT will do that. Then you can put it into your email where Grammarly will fix that again for the second. So now we've just had a conversation and now we're already at the third turning point. Third time AI has already been involved in that. Which is completely insane.
I started using Grammarly and very quickly realized that apparently I don't use enough commas. I don't know if Grammarly is obsessed with commas. It feels like they put commas everywhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
shoot. I'm like, that's not how I learned it in English class. I didn't remember putting a comma there, but all right, whatever, sure.
It's
Okay,
so funny.
Grammarly.
But the one thing about it is like my Achilles heel in recruitment was never the conversations. It was like the pitch, you know? And because of all of that, I can have a conversation with somebody, which is what I'm good at, find out things about them and what they're interested in. And I don't have to be sitting there with a pen and pad being like, okay, Michael is he's looking to work in Burbank and he's currently, you know what I mean? Like I can just ask you where, you know, I could ask you while I'm in a car driving into the mountains and you can be telling me these things and it's all getting, the data is getting put there.
I actually need to use a tool like that for because I'm very forgetful. And so I actually need that when I'm doing like a first conversation with a potential client, you know, and asking them all those questions of how do you want this done, blah, blah. Because that way, sometimes I'm in the car or whatever, and I don't remember, you know, if I can't write it down if I'm not at my computer and take notes. So I will say, like, I recently did a onboarding call for this company that's helping me out with the podcast, and they had something like that in place too, where immediately after the call was over, I got a whole like AI, not even transcription, but a notes, like here's the call notes. And I was like, ooh, that's great. Like I could maybe use that for what we're doing here too. So yeah,
it's great. I mean, there's a lot of them like Otter and like MetaView, but it holds the data for like over 2 years. And it gives me a point of reference too, because, you know, I can remember, oh, Michael has a dog named Steve. I talked to you a year later and I'm like, hey, how's your dog doing? You know, like, how do you remember that? Well, it's like, it gives me something to kind of work with. And I love it. I mean, we use captions for some of our socials, and that's like an app that does AI where basically we'll like cut and add B-roll, is that what they call it? I guess all these different things. And people that are good editors have nothing to worry about because the editing is crap. It's total crap, but it's good enough kind of like for what I'm putting out on TikTok. Yeah. And it gets me by. And of course it's an expense that I don't have the luxury of, you know, we have a small team. There's like 6 of us. I don't have the budget to bring on a full-time video editor for my stupid socials.
The other thing is that, you know, so I use something similar. What do you use? Captions?
Captions is the app I use.
Captions. Yeah. So I use a similar thing called Opus Clip or Opus.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one. Yep.
And it's worked really well. You know, there's still some work involved with it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you still have to go in. It doesn't quite pull the right part, you know, you kind of extend stuff, whatever, and then pull time. But it's fun to use. First off, it's actually a lot of fun. But secondly, the way I look at it is, okay, there's jobs associated with captions, with Opus. There's jobs over there. There are people that are running that, and there's a business model there that did not exist before.
Yeah.
So yes, things changed. It's being done differently, but there's still jobs associated with that, you know?
Yep. And I haven't created a AI Justin Levinson cloned bot yet on my...
You can do that.
Yeah, where that it's a little weird. It's part of my subscription, but I have not done that yet. So at least I'm still doing some more of my legwork than just typing in the prompt.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, I don't think that's ready for prime time yet. Plus, I like being on camera. You know, I enjoy that part. So I think it's a little hard to replicate personality yet, unless it's like a tutorial and it's very just, you know, blah, 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 you know, okay. Yep. But if you like this, where we're really having a conversation, I feel like that would be very tough for AI to get down just yet, you know.
Totally agree. I think there's still a lot of human left in what we both do. I mean, this is a human thing too. And like, you know, I enjoy talking to real human beings and, you know, sharing these conversations with people. And so there is a limit to what I'm comfortable with in the AI, but I'm a champion of it. It makes my life in general, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. No, ChatGPT is a lot of fun to use. We use it to write like the cold open, you know, and then I'll tweak it, of course. Like we'll tweak it, but it's given me some funny, like we had one show where we're like, where movie trailers are the main thing and we're the hecklers in the back row. That was AI gave me that. I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. You know, I wouldn't have come up with that because I make that almost sounds like we're making fun of the trailers, which we're not. we're not. But at the same time, I thought it was funny enough that I was like,
Yeah.
let's just keep that. I kind of like that, you know?
I will.
Anyone that actually listens or watches the show knows that that's not the case. It's, you know, it's
Yeah.
just a silly intro, you know?
Totally. I mean, I use I put GPT like awake on my phone, and at nighttime with my kids, sometimes I'll be like, we'll obviously do reading and real human things as well. But sometimes what we'll do with ChatGPT is we'll have it create a story where we'll add characters like, hey ChatGPT, tell me a short funny story, and I'll have a
That's
character
cool.
named Bill the skunk who like has a problem with like eating too many cookies and whatever.
I love that.
And so we add all these different characters, and then we say like, hey, can you run with our idea and create a funny story? And so that's a really fun thing we do at night. It's really lighthearted. And then sometimes we will ask like, what was the moral of the story? And tell us the moral of the story. Like you have like a really painful like gallstone of the moral of the story. And we're like, can you tell us this in a really heavy British accent? Or
That's hilarious.
And so, yeah, it's pretty funny. I remember, I think the other day, my daughter and I asked it if it could like close out the moral of the story with a huge burp, and it was like, I'm not able to burp yet, but you can imagine a giant belch while I'm telling you the moral of the story. And we're like, okay. But it's like, I do find it funny. I was one of those kids that when the Mac Man came out, and you could like type in things for it to say, especially when I was a little kid, and like even the word like poop and pee was really funny. and you'd make the Mac Man say, I have to poop, and it would be like, oh my God, that's so funny.
Literally, my daughter, she comes here after school at the office a lot of times, and the other day I was showing her 11 Labs, the voiceover thing, and she's like, hold on, sneaks over, and pretty soon I heard like, I have to poop, and I'm like, all right, Mila, yeah, that's a good one. Like 10-year-olds,
Yeah, man. Well, hey, 40, and I'm still finding the same potty humor still somehow almost as funny in this.
It's really, toilet humor is really where you can really connect with your child on a humor level.
Totally.
That's where it all meets up.
Yeah.
We all love it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Like it definitely brings out a bit of the inner child.
Yeah,
and it's.
I mean, that's why you go see any of those like what's the word, or like any of those like Minions movies.
Yeah.
It's all toilet humor because they know everybody gets it. The kids think it's funny, the adults think it's funny. It's like,
yeah, I can appreciate it for sure. I mean, what's not funny about a fart? I mean, it makes a funny sound and it smells bad. I mean, it's like, it's brilliant. It's like,
it's brilliant.
It's one of the greatest experiences on earth, But yeah, man, I guess, yeah. I mean, we've been going on the AI thing for a minute, but I do love it. I do love it, and I'm not yet concerned that Tesla robots are going to come in and kill us all, but it might happen.
Was it called? That's where it's called. Now I could get this wrong, but isn't that called bio AI or is it machine AI? Machine AI.
That might be above my pay grade. Yeah,
that makes me a little more nervous because that's Terminator, right?
Yeah.
At that point,
I'll be back.
AI inside a computer does not worry me too much. It just, like I said, it's a great productivity tool in my opinion. But the machine AI, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I will say, I think it's going to be a long time till you see a robot flipping your burgers at McDonald's.
Yeah.
I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's been a while.
Yeah. It'll be weird. It'll certainly.
But it's not like they've slowly been displacing jobs for a long time. Like you go to McDonald's and if you go inside,
ring it up yourself.
You got to ring up yourself, which I think is a pain in the ass because honestly, it takes longer.
I know.
If I just go tell someone and they hit those buttons all day, they do it way faster than I don't know what shit is.
I've seen it even in.
God, I got to find where the drinks are.
Yeah, it's even more challenging. Some of the mom and pop. There's more like these little mom and pop stores that are kind of doing the same thing where they sort of have like the screen on each side. I mean, I'm in Vermont, so I've been, maybe it's just something that's happening here, but I see the both the screens where it's like the person on the other side could ring it up for you, or you could do it. But it's sort of like they kind of sit back being like, I hope you're going to do it. But if I have to, and they look at you and they're like, okay, if you're like under 70, you're going to do it yourself. But if you're over 70, I'm going to approach you and try to help you. It's very weird.
There are times when I think that we go too far with it. Like I went to a doctor's office recently or something, And I went to check in and they're like, okay, use the kiosk. I'm like, okay. So I go to the kiosk and it's like, scan your license, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Do this. It took forever just because the kiosk was like slow, not because I'm stupid.
Yeah.
Because like I'm, techie. I could kind of get it.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, you guys could have done this in 30 seconds had I just talked to a human being.
Yeah.
And there's human beings sitting there.
I know.
They're sitting right there. So it's like things like that are just overkill. Like, why are we doing that to ourselves?
Yeah.
And like the self-checkouts at Lowe's and Home Depot, I'm like, can I just get someone to scan this for me? Jesus.
No. Do you think it's going to be just that, like, I mean, I think is Amazon do that where it's like you're able to just like load up your like maybe it's not, maybe I don't know if I'm understanding this right, but I heard that somewhere in maybe it's not Amazon, but the model is like you're just going to go to a store, put all your groceries or whatever you have in your basket, and you're just going to just like walk right out.
Yeah,
that's maybe
I've
that already
that.
happens, right? They already have that.
No, yeah, there's definitely places like that. I even think there's like something at Magic Mountain like that. Like you go to Magic Mountain, there's like a drink kiosk there. You just walk in, grab a soda, and walk out. Somehow it charges you.
Yeah, I still haven't experienced that yet. Maybe
it was just shoplifting, and I didn't know it.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, maybe I need to. We left LA quite a while ago. So Vermont is like notoriously behind the times and like in everything because we're
Yeah, I was wondering when you moved out to Vermont because I would assume you lived out here at some point. Right?
Yeah, we lived in Echo Park for a long time. We lived in Silver Lake too, and then we ended up like right before the pandemic. We bought a house in Vermont because our families are here, and we have aging family members and we have little kids, so it sort of made sense. But I mean, we miss LA terribly, but it's
honestly, at this point, if it wasn't for my daughter being here, I probably would have moved because just, I've done it. I've been here, done it for 20 years. My parents and family all live somewhere else, Florida, Texas, so yeah, I do love California for its beauty.
Yeah.
It's just very expensive now.
Yeah.
It's so expensive. Mm-hmm. But I do love that you can do essentially anything you want to do. Yeah. You want to go see a Broadway level play. You want to go to see basketball, football, anything. You want to ski. Exactly. You want to go to the beach. Like, that's incredible. But holy guacamole, has it gotten expensive.
Yeah. And that was sort of our calculus when we had to make that decision about, I mean, we could either buy like a really nice home and arguably the most affluent part of the state of Vermont, or we could live in a decrepit condo in East Hollywood. And it was like, those are the two options, because those were like what the same price points were at. And I thought to myself, maybe if I had lived in California for my whole life and I had been sort of used to having like what my income was there years before, and it was sort of like, but coming from Vermont, going to LA, then drastically, obviously, you make more money there too, even things cost more money, but it still was not reaching that level of like, if I wanted to have this quality of life, I would need to live in like, like, I don't know, Hollywood Hills or like, or like La Cañada or some real nice part of Pasadena, or just could not, that was not really attainable for us in Echo Park.
For sure.
So, but yeah, I agree. Those are the nice things. We love to go to Malibu on the weekends. We love to hike on the all the different trails and around the Griffith Observatory, and go to great shows and great music and great food. And like, I mean, the food cannot beat. I mean, at least compared to here, because the people that actually create those foods are the ethnic. They match the foods. They're creative. They're not like here. It's just like, here's a bunch of white guys making you some tacos. It's like, of course this tastes terrible. It's like,
oh my God.
So I miss all that stuff.
Yeah. As well. I hear you. Yeah. It's just, it's can't have it all, I guess.
Yeah, man, that is true. But hey, I really appreciate you coming on here today and speaking with us. It's been fun. It's been funny. I've really enjoyed hearing about your podcast. And
do you mind me plugging it one more time before we go?
Yeah, go for it, man.
So I, and we'll have to have you on sometime. That'd be great.
Love to. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you on for sure. And So yeah, if you guys want to check out another podcast, that's about movie trailers and TV spots and just entertainment advertising in general, our video portions on YouTube. It's at Green Band Podcast, or just search the Green Band Podcast and our channel will come up. And then we're on all major podcast platforms as well, just the Green Band Podcast. And then we're on social media at Green Band Podcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Not Twitter. Sorry. That's not a thing anyways anymore. Jeez. I still say Twitter. I'm not saying X. It's stupid. I'm saying, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. So that's kind of where we're on the interwebs.
Cool. Awesome, Michael. Well, yeah, thanks for being on. And I'll continue to follow the podcast as well. I follow you on LinkedIn. I'm sure people can follow you there as well and see the clips of the social assets that you've created for it. Yeah. Thanks again for being here, and look forward to being on your pod sometime. And have a great rest of your week.
You got it. Thanks, Justin.
All right,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Adios.
All right.